Hello and welcome to Joy of Stationery. I'm Jennifer, and this is a project that I am tentatively calling Finding the Poetry. And this is something that I hope to be able to share every so often, where I have a chance to talk a little bit about some of the recent beautiful words or beautiful quotations I've been able to find. I've got my tea here in this lovely anthropology mug. And what I'm doing with this particular notebook, and I've mentioned this in a previous video, is I'm thinking about using it to collect beautiful long form quotations, the beautiful words that we might come across in our everyday lives. And it's a way to collect some of these beautiful sentiments and keep them all together. What I really love about this notebook, which is just really well made, is the way that it happened to fit independently of the idea that I had with this idea of finding. And so in the inside cover, for example, we see, I think, letterpressed in the on that first kind of initial page. It reads, "I do not seek, I find." And so this, I hope, will be a collection, a book full of beautiful words that I find along the way that I hope will help me. I've sped up the video just so that it's not terribly long, but what you'll see is that I'll be writing down the first sort of entry in this particular book. And for the video, I wanted to just read that quotation aloud. So if I were to read it in real time with my writing, the writing itself is much longer. But if I read it with a video that's kind of sped up to the pace of the speaking, then hopefully we'll get through this, and it won't have to be too terribly long. My first entry here actually is by Éireann Lorsung, and it's from her substack called Bewilderment, and this was a recent post that was called Some Notes on Notebooks. What I'll be reading are really the excerpts that I ended up writing down in this notebook. And these were excerpts that I thought were just especially resonant and ones that I hope that you'll enjoy thinking about as well. So she begins, "To hold the act of thinking before it resolves into thought. To write plans in, write grocery lists in, to count chores off in, diagram ideas in until the ideas finally take shape. To be a physical location for so much that would be hard to hold in mind alone. To remind my hand how to move. To make the act of beginning to write an everyday thing, done without ceremony or anxiety. To convince me that writing is ongoing as thinking is, without end, without scarcity, and without a target in mind. To practice in. To merge the acts of write and draw. To keep my brain lively while I wait. A place to make my whole life, and then, more or less, to leave behind. The long and wide form of a notebook changes the way that sentences can be shaped. When I'm writing by hand, the material insists back at me. It makes me do things like break a line, but not only. And it does things to me, like suggest relations across space and time. Of course, a computer screen is insisting too. That shows up in how the shape of the A4 or letter page is taken for granted by so many writers and thinkers. It's just that reading and working so much in that form, I often forget that it is not default at all, but a design choice that I too can choose or not. There is no perfect system. The imperfectibility of it is the system. You go on through it, trying to make sense of what's in front of you, and trying to connect that to some other things. Scraps of paper tucked between the pages, just as they were when I opened this at random, and underneath a lesson plan. Some people have notebooks for one project at a time, but I have always ended up putting everything together in one place, like my life. Thinking and being is like water underground, there even when you can't see it. Just keep making marks on the pages. Meaning will take care of itself over time. As a teacher, I have to remember that learning is not shaped like objectives and trajectories. It goes in all kinds of ways I can't predict, and it looks like things including the opposite of my intentions. Making notes does not need to be orderly either, or direct. Will I go back to these drawings and notes and make something of them? On the one hand, no. They are already the something that they are. I feel obstinately that the purpose of the notebook is itself. It is not there to serve the real work of a book or a painting. It is there as itself and for itself. On the other hand, to open an old notebook re-immerses me in the time and place of its making. Sometimes I am reminded of things I would rather not be, of my own past pettiness or smallness of imagination, narrowness, unformedness, and that helps me think again about how I want to be, what matters, how to make art and how to write, how to teach. Sometimes the notebook teaches me about the work I'm making, not least that I've been making it for a long time. The notebook holds and teaches. It keeps me patient, lets me be as large as I am in aspiration and imagination. It lets me bound all over, a free place. It was never for the now that I have ended up in, but the making of the notebook is what brought me here all the same. And so I wanted to share this excerpt from, again, a larger written piece by Éireann Lorsung, again, on the substack Bewilderment, because it just seems so apropos to our love of notebooks in the stationery community, and also just a really lovely and deep kind of meditation on what that means exactly. You know, what is the notebook? In what ways does it help us to access the way that we think, access a certain place or time of its making, as well as all the ways in which notebooks serve different purposes. And even then, bringing into our consideration the way that the notebook is there for itself, in a way. And I think this is a really beautiful sentiment, especially as we think about what we value in our notebooks. What is it that brings us joy or comfort when we turn to them? And it's because of this that I thought it was the perfect entry to begin this collection, or begin this project that I hope will end up as a collection of beautiful words that I found again along the way. I hope that this is something, as much as it is a short video, that is perhaps a little bit different, but for those of you who also love beautiful words, I hope that this might be something that also brings you some joy and comfort to think about, to listen to, maybe also to journal about. And I hope to see you then in the next one. And in the meantime, I hope you'll join me in finding the poetry wherever you are.